To this story now, government and Eskom have until Friday to explain what's being done to address power cuts or face legal action. Political parties, NGOs and individuals want timelines for when the economy-killing outages will come to an end. They've sent a letter of demand to the utility and its shareholder. Among the demands is the 18.65% increase granted by NERSA not be implemented. Let's speak to Attorney Mpumelelo Zikalala on some of the constitutional violations mentioned in the letter and the demands set out. Mpumelelo, good morning as usual. Thank you very much for your time. A very interesting letter which deals with what the client says is a breach of the obligation to provide electricity. Firstly, your view as a start on the route taken by these individuals and organizations.
Good morning to you and also to your viewers. I think it was a long time coming. There's been a long time in which South Africans have endured suffering and abuse at the hands of certain individuals which, well, for lack of a better word, don't know how to handle their matters when it comes to Eskom, and that would be solely on the streets or at the doors of government. Now, in this case, what these applicants are saying is that you have certain rights and obligations that you have to comply with. You need to make sure that you are able to comply with these obligations as per. These are rights, by the way, which accrue to us as members of the country or as citizens of the country. Now, if you are failing to do that, you must show ways in which you are doing your work, and most importantly, be able to show what you're doing with that particular matter. So I think it's a warning shot to government to say, please make sure that you're able to get your house into order, make sure that you're able to hold those accountable, so that you're able to see that you are doing something with these outbreaks. Added to that, there's also the Public Finance Management Act, which is applicable in this matter, because there are roles and responsibilities of accounting officers. There are roles of responsibilities as to how to discipline members who are not doing their job or not doing their work in the manner in which they're supposed to do it. In another way, one could have said, this is what the supposed opposition should have been doing. This is what parliamentarians should be doing. When they have to appear in scope or any other parliamentary committee, the CEO of Eskom, the minister, must be able to account and to tell South Africans what are they doing. Now, if you see that the situation is going down the drain, then it's deteriorating every single day. That means someone is not doing their job somewhere.
So when you look at that letter, would you say that this is then a precursor to something bigger, that they want government to then start this communication? Should they not be satisfied with the response, then they have some sort of information to now go straight to the courts?
Definitely. In terms of saying, let's even quantify the extent of damage which is there. Firstly, when you respond to this particular letter, you then acknowledge that you do have a certain obligation or right or duty that you have towards the people of South Africa. Added to that, what are you then doing to make sure that you're able to supply what they need to supply? And when they've suffered damages due to negligence or your failure to do the job, then you must be able to engage in those particular processes. So in this case, it is one of those matters the courts will have to come in and intervene. And it's unfortunate that the courts will come in and intervene and say, government, you're not doing your job. You must do your job. You must be able to render the services that you promised the citizens of South Africa or South Africans, that you will make sure that their lights are on every single day.
Now, if we had to be granular and just look at it a bit more, in the letter, the interest groups contend that there have been material breaches of constitutional rights, namely Section 22, which is the right of the freedom of trade, occupation and profession. What are your views on the alleged breach of this?
There may be that, depending on the type of defenses that can be raised. Now, the first or the general rule would be to state, but for the non-performance of Eskom, I've suffered the following when it comes to my freedom of trade. I can't trade because I need to close off my business because the electricity is not there. However, in a social contract that you can have, or a contract that you have with Eskom, because you would sign one before they come in and do the installation, they can come back and say in their defenses, well, it was impossible for me to do this job because due to circumstances which were beyond my control, I did not foresee that this particular matters would then take us through in a stage in which I will not be able to provide electricity. They may even raise what you call a force majeure, and then say, to simply an act of God, an act which is beyond my control. These are one of the instances in which I have said, when you enter this particular contract, that I may not be able to render those particular services to you if push comes to a shove and I cannot be able to deal with this particular matter. So at the end of the day, can you please understand that it's not because I want you to suffer when it comes to the services which I'm rendering to you. It is simply circumstances which are beyond my control, and it's not any intentional malice or any mismanagement that has taken place. It is simply something which is beyond our control.
Then to their demands. They, among others, demand that there be no load shedding without procedural fairness. What, in your view, would be fair in this respect? Right now, the way they've been load shedding us, it would be in most instances where we would have received a press statement. But then there are also instances where we're just upgraded to a certain stage without any notice, or the notice being very short for many people to actually make alternative arrangements. What would be fair? Is this even a legitimate demand, legally speaking?
It could be, depending on whether what would be the response of Eskom, because I think what they're trying to ask indirectly is that what's the science behind the load shedding schedules with the time which are then allocated, the stages that are there, with saying that, for example, at Tegwini, Ward 101, you're going to be load shedding at between 9 and 11. Did you look at the type of businesses that are there? Do you look at the type of the area that is there? Wouldn't it be better if you then focus maybe your hardcore load shedding during your residential areas, because if then assume that people are not living there, are not there during the day, they are at work, and then at work you do the vice versa. So it's one of those things in which they are then saying indirectly, show us the science behind the load scheduling schedule. What informed you to load shed in this particular manner? What informed you in terms of the times? But mostly, let's make it clear as to when exactly are we going to be load shed. Can we find a situation where there's constant load shedding so that you can be able to do your maintenance and be able to find the core problem of this particular solution, and not to simply go or load shed as you go or fix as you go, depending on where you want to take your maintenance structure to. So it's one of the things in which then gives certainty to business individuals, as they would know that in this particular day, I'm not going to trade because I'm load shedding. I can give my staff a day off, or they can take leave, or we have to rearrange our time in which we need to deliver. When you have certain contracts that you need to deliver in, that's when we can then come in and say, these are the processes in which we are going to render our services, or the times or the slots in which we are going to use it in order to trade. So at the end of the day, I think they are forcing government to say, communicate more. Please be consultative in the manner in which you are doing your work. You are not in this problem alone. It's also affecting us greatly. So if you want us to, let's work together and be able to find a solution together.
Is it purely just communicating more in this instance? Because it seems as though they want to cut out the conduit or the third party, whomever, be it the media, be it government communication. They're saying deal directly with us. We are an entity here. We are individuals and organizations. We want you to give us all the facts. How do we arrive at load shedding? And after you've given us the facts, we want to nail you on the facts, perhaps, and then take you to court. Is that not exactly what we're going to see here, where they want to be dealt with directly? Everything where Eskom would say it is in the public domain why we're having load shedding, they're saying give it to us now. We're going to scrutinize all the reasons you've provided, and then they most certainly are taking Eskom and government to court.
Certainly, part of it would be that, in terms of saying, we want to know the finer details when it comes to load shedding. But while we are doing that particular process, we can then be able to pinpoint who are the guilty individuals. Who is that is not doing their work, so that when we launch our application, we can then say, this is the person that is causing us all the damages. Can you please pay up and put us in a place in which we would have been had load shedding not taken place? So it is, if you look at it, a fact-finding mission, information request mission, in terms of saying, provide more information. They may have it already, just that they want to have it on record, and then say, this is what we've received when we try to communicate with them. But it's also a lesson for Eskom in terms of saying, maybe it's time in which they then increase their stakeholder relations engagements type of processes, not in a manner in which they're doing now, where they simply announce without having any feedback from their consumers or their clients, in terms of saying, what could be the best working load shedding schedule that can be able to work for you, that you can be able to tolerate in line with your business and other activities that are taking place. We all know that the number one basis would be there should be no load shedding at all. However, if we have a national crisis or a national problem, let's find solutions together so that we're able to work together towards that particular solution. So it's a process of saying, I'm requesting much more information. When I receive this particular information, it's going to help me plan one, but most importantly, it's going to help with my litigation if I then decide that I need to sue you at a later stage.